You're watching Northern Crimes.
In 2016, Anchorage, Alaska was a city in the grip of fear. What began as isolated, brutal attacks along bike paths and parks soon turned into whispers of something far more sinister, the possibility of a serial killer in their midst. By year's end, 5 people had been murdered in cold blood. Each case left residents and authorities more confused as the trail seemed to grow colder with every step. It all culminated in a dramatic police shootout in November 2016 that finally brought the violence to an end. This is the true story of the Anchorage Serial Killings, when an unknown killer turned Anchorage into a hunting ground. This is Northern Crimes. James Dale Ritchie was born on November 4th, 1976 in Anchorage, Alaska. He was raised in the tough but tightly knit neighborhood of Wonder Park. Despite growing up in a neighborhood plagued by crime, Ritchie stood out in high school, both in stature and in talent. At East Anchorage High School, he played on the 1994 state championship football and basketball teams, where he built close bonds with future professional athletes like Trajan Langdon and Mayo Tosi. He was a promising student who scored a respectable 1,200 on his SATs, which led to a recruitment by West Virginia University to play football in 1994. At the time, it seemed like Ritchie was on the path to success, with a promising future ahead of him. But that same year, tragedy struck. Quincy Thompson, a close friend, was shot and killed. For Ritchie, losing Quincy was a devastating blow that set him on a downward spiral. He dropped out of WVU after only 1 semester and returned to Anchorage in 1995. But the Anchorage Ritchie came back to was a city where opportunities seemed to have slipped away. The path that had once seemed so bright had turned dark. His old friends had gone on to have successful careers, but Ritchie's future was filled with uncertainty. His descent into crime began with drug dealing and dogfighting, earning him the street name Tiny, an ironic moniker given his imposing 6'3" frame. Ritchie's criminal record began to grow, with arrests for drug-related offenses and other petty crimes. But in 2005, he crossed a new line when he was arrested during a home invasion. He was caught with plastic handcuffs and 2 handguns in his possession. This led to a 2-year jail sentence. After his release, Ritchie continued living in Anchorage, and it was during this period that he acquired a Colt Python .357 revolver, a weapon that would later become infamous in the string of murders to come. In 2013, Ritchie briefly moved to Broadway, Virginia, where his parents were living at the time. For a while, he appeared to be turning his life around, having no significant run-ins with the law other than some minor traffic violations. But in early 2016, after a breakup with his girlfriend, Ritchie returned to Alaska. Somewhere along the way, he reacquired that Colt Python from an acquaintance and settled into a trailer park. This time, his return to Alaska would signal the beginning of a terrifying chain of events. On July 3rd, 2016, the bodies of Brianna Foisey and Jason Netter Sr. were discovered along a bike path near Ship Creek. They'd been shot multiple times with a .357 caliber weapon. Brianna, just 20 years old, had struggled with homelessness and substance abuse. Jason Netter Sr., 41, had a troubled past with the law, but was trying to rebuild his life. The police found little evidence at the scene, leaving them with few leads. 2 days later, the Anchorage Police Department ruled the deaths as homicides and released images of 2 persons of interest captured on surveillance footage. On July 29th, Ritchie struck again. Trayvon Kendall Thompson, known as Trey to his friends, was shot and killed while riding his bicycle home from work in East Anchorage. Earlier that evening, 3 young girls had noticed a tall figure lurking in the woods near Boland Street. They later described feeling an uneasy sense of dread, and moments later, they heard gunshots ring out. Then, when they looked out the window, they saw Trey's lifeless body on the ground and the stranger taking his bicycle. The investigation into Trey's murder soon revealed an unsettling pattern. Ballistics confirmed that the same .357 caliber weapon had been used in both Trey's murder and the double homicide on July 3rd. Yet, despite this growing evidence, the police still had no concrete leads on the killer. Witness descriptions and a composite sketch of the suspect started to point in a particular direction, but at this time, James Dale Ritchie, he still wasn't a suspect in the case. The next murders occurred on August 28th in Valley of the Moon Park. Kevin Turner, a man struggling with schizophrenia and bipolar disorder, was walking through the park late that night. Another young man, Bryant Bree DeHuson, an environmental activist, was also in the area. The 2 victims weren't connected, and police surmised that DeHuson may have simply been in the wrong place at the wrong time, possibly taking a late-night bike ride to meet up with a friend. Ritchie ambushed them in the darkness, shooting Turner under the pavilion and DeHuson somewhere on the bike trail. With the FBI now assisting the APD, a joint task force was formed and an advisory was issued warning residents to avoid isolated trails after dark. Public fear continued to rise. Anchorage's bike paths and parks, once popular recreational spots, now felt like the domain of a shadowy predator. In the early morning hours of November 12, 2016, everything changed. An Anchorage Police Department officer named Arn Salau responded to a report of an unpaid cab fare in downtown Anchorage. As he approached the scene, he saw a tall man lumbering down the street.
Sir, Anchorage Police, can I get you to stop? $11:30. Does want to stop? I'll try to come off here at Hope Depot.
He pulled up alongside James Dale Ritchie, not realizing the danger he was facing. When Ritchie ignored Salau's initial request to stop, the officer called out again over his patrol car's megaphone. This time, Ritchie turned.
This This is the Anchorage Police. You need to stop. This is the Anchorage Police. You need to stop.
He pulled out the Colt Python and opened fire. Ritchie fired 6 shots, hitting Salau multiple times and causing severe injuries to his bones and organs. Despite his injuries, Salau managed to exit his vehicle and return fire. Then Sergeant Mark Patsky, a canine officer, arrived at the scene and joined in the confrontation. A fierce shootout ensued, and it ended with Ritchie fatally wounded. When officers searched Ritchie's body, they discovered the Colt Python .357 revolver. Forensic testing later confirmed that it was indeed the same weapon used in the 5 murders that had terrorized Anchorage in 2016. The authorities took their time piecing together the full story, cautiously gathering all the evidence they needed before confirming Ritchie's role in the killings. In April 2017, the APD held a press conference officially confirming that James Dale Ritchie was the sole perpetrator of the 5 murders. Ballistics evidence and investigative work conclusively tied him to each of the crimes. The cases were now closed, but the memories of that violent summer remained. The summer of 2016 left Anchorage with more questions than answers. What drove James Dale Ritchie to commit such heinous crimes? Why did he target the victims he chose? These questions still remain, even as Anchorage attempts to rebuild its sense of security. For the residents of this town, the summer of 2016 wasn't just a series of murders. It was a traumatic period that changed how they viewed their community and public spaces. James Dale Ritchie's criminal record, his descent from a promising high school athlete to a hardened criminal, and his return to Alaska in 2016 all pointed to a man who'd somehow lost his way long ago. But even knowing how he got there doesn't fully explain why he did what he did. For the victims' families and the community at large, the pain of that summer lingers on.